You know, when a plane crashes or there's a huge incident at a factory, our first instinct is to find that one mistake, right? To find the one person responsible. But what if the real story is so much deeper, way more complex, and it's been hiding in plain sight all along? So today, we're going to dig into that story.
I mean, it's easy to think there's a single point of failure. Somebody flips the wrong switch and the whole system comes crashing down. But the truth is, major accidents are almost never that simple. They are almost always the result of this long, invisible chain of events.
And the key to unlocking that whole chain? Well, it comes from a surprisingly simple, everyday metaphor. That's right, Swiss cheese. Now, stick with me here, because this one idea completely changed how we think about safety. So, this is what's called the Swiss cheese model. It was first proposed by a psychologist named James Reason back in 1990. I want you to imagine every layer of safety in a complex system. Let's say in aviation. You've got procedures, training, technology, supervision. Each one is a slice of cheese. It's a defense. But here's the catch. None of them are perfect. Every single slice has holes in it. And this is such a great way to visualize the problem, right? Most of the time, a weakness in one slice, a hole, gets blocked by the next solid slice of cheese. No problem. But every so often, just by pure tragic chance, the holes in every single layer line up perfectly. And that creates what Reason called a trajectory of accident opportunity. A hazard shoots straight through all the defenses and bam, disaster strikes. Okay, so it's a great metaphor, a great mental model, but how do investigators actually use it? Let's take a look at how this idea goes from a simple block of cheese to a seriously powerful tool, especially in these high-stakes fields. Well, in a field like aviation, this is way more than just a theory. It's really the foundation for how they analyze accidents. See, investigators needed a systematic way to find all the holes in all the different slices of cheese, not just the very last one. And that tool has a name. It's called HFACS, the Human Factors Analysis and Classification System. It was developed by two doctors, Scott Schappel and Doug Wiegman. And what they did was brilliant. They took Reason's cheese slices and turned them into a concrete, repeatable framework for an investigation. It gives analysts a structured map to find all those hidden failures. And while this is the blueprint for the whole system, this is HAFAX. It organizes all the possible failures into 4 key levels. You can see them here. At the very bottom, you have unsafe acts. Then you move up to preconditions for unsafe acts, then unsafe supervision, and finally, right at the top, you've got organizational influences. So what we're going to do is walk through this whole thing, starting at the bottom and working our way right to the top. All right, let's start at what safety experts call the sharp end. This is where the action happens. We're talking about the unsafe acts of the operators themselves, the people on the front line, like pilots in a cockpit. Okay, right off the bat, HFAX makes a really important distinction. Not all unsafe acts are the same. On one side, you have errors. These are totally unintentional. Somebody didn't mean to do the wrong thing. On the other side, you've got violations. That's when someone intentionally disregards the rules. And for an investigator, that's a massive difference. And you can see some really powerful examples here. An error could be skill-based, like just forgetting a checklist item. Or it could be a decision error, maybe choosing the wrong procedure in an emergency. It could even be perceptual, like a pilot getting hit with spatial disorientation and not knowing which way is up. Violations, though, that's stuff like intentionally flying too low or breaking the rules laid out in a briefing. So yeah, these actions, they're the most visible failures, right? They're the immediate cause of the accident. But you have to remember the Swiss cheese model. This is just the final hole that the hazard passed through. Our job now is to figure out what other holes were lined up behind it. Okay, so now we're going to move backward. We're going from the sharp end with the pilots into what's called the blunt end, the systemic, often hidden conditions that actually created the environment for those mistakes to happen in the first place. So here we are at level 2, preconditions for unsafe acts. Think of these as the latent failures, right? The holes that were already in the cheese long before the incident even started. These can be things about the condition of the operators or the environment they're working in. I mean, just look at some of these preconditions. Under adverse mental states, you have stuff like distraction or even something called get-home-itis, that really dangerous desire to just rush and get the mission over with. Under the physiological states, plain old physical fatigue is a huge one. And failures in crew resource management, like poor communication or a breakdown in leadership, those create massive vulnerabilities. These are the holes that set the stage for an error.
All right, let's climb another level. We're now at unsafe supervision. This is where we start to see that it's not just about the folks on the front line. The actions, or maybe even the inaction, of their direct supervisors creates another whole layer of defense, or another set of holes. And HVACs breaks this down into four pretty clear buckets. A supervisor might provide inadequate training or guidance. They could plan an inappropriate operation that just creates unnecessary risk. And this one's critical. They might fail to correct a problem they already know exists. Or they could commit a violation themselves, like, say, authorizing an unqualified crew for a flight. And now we've reached the very top of the pyramid, organizational influences. This is the bluntest end of the entire system. We're talking about decisions made in the boardroom by high-level management that can create these latent failures that just lie dormant for years before they ever contribute to an accident. You know, what's really striking here is just how far removed these failures can feel from the actual cockpit. Under resource management, you've got things like excessive cost cutting. Under organizational climate, a bad safety culture or a broken chain of command can be absolutely devastating. And under operational process, things like unrealistic schedules or poor planning put pressure on the entire system, punching holes in every single slice of cheese all the way down. And make no mistake, this is exactly what real-world investigators do. Organizations like France's BEA, that's their Bureau of Investigations and Analyses for Civil Aviation Safety, they use this kind of systemic thinking. They don't just look at the pilots. They dig deep into training records, maintenance logs, supervisory decisions, and company-wide policies to find every single factor that contributed. So, what does all of this add up to? Well, it's a fundamental shift in how we approach safety. It's about moving away from just blaming one person and moving towards understanding and fixing the entire system. You know, this quote really gets to the heart of it all. Yeah, a person might make the final mistake, but this model forces us to ask, what were the underlying conditions, the other holes in the cheese, that allowed that one single error to become a full-blown catastrophe? And that's the thing, the power of looking at safety this way, it's just immense. The Swiss cheese model is so intuitive. It pushes organizations to think holistically about everything they do. It encourages them to go hunting for those hidden failures and fix them before an accident can happen. And maybe most importantly, it puts human factors front and center in how we analyze safety. So in the end, this whole model is about changing the question we ask. It's not about finding a scapegoat. The real shift happens when we stop asking who is to blame, and we start asking the much, much more powerful question, why did our defenses fail? So I'll leave you with this. Think about that in your own world, at your job, in your community, even on the road. Where are your slices of cheese? And more importantly, where are the holes?